Home of Indiana University, rock quarries, cornfields, enchanted woods, and injury lawyer Ken Nunn, Bloomington is a town that has a term for its ability to lure one-time residents back, the bloomerang. There's something weirdly magical going on here, and college town nobodies Josh Bennett and Chris Coopersmith are going to get to the bottom of this place by listening to stories and riding every possible tangent along the way.
So last night, Asa, my son, who's 12 years old, we've had this ongoing thing that he play in orchestra. So he learned the upright bass. He's in 5th grade and most of 6th grade. And he's been pretty resistant to it the entire time. And finally, it just kind of came to a head and we let him quit, but not after he accidentally broke the bass into pieces. I think I told you about that.
Quote unquote, accidentally.
Exactly. And so now he's got the electric bass and he had friends over. I'm working my way into a Bloomington story here. He had a couple friends over, and he's in 6th grade, and he wants to start a band. And he has a friend who plays guitar, and he has another friend who plays piano really well. And they all love Don't Stop Believin'. And so I knew that was going to be on the list. And they did Sweet Home Alabama. And then the pianist started playing the song, and it took me a second to recognize it, but I realized it was the song by the band Train, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You remember that band?
Yeah, I think so.
Let me give you a little taste. Baby, by the board,
Oh God, yeah. I know that band.
I think it's called Drops of Jupiter, that song.
Yeah.
But so here's the Bloomington story. It was just a weird moment because there's this 12-year-old kid who's a friend with my kid, and he's singing this song, and I realize that song, and I feel I know this to be true. There's that song they stole from a Bloomington band.
Old Pike.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lawsuit or something.
There was a lawsuit. I mean, well, and I don't know how far the lawsuit went because so they took. I can't remember if Old Pike got signed or something like that, and so they got put on tour with the Train. When Train was coming up, and Old Pike had this song. It was one of the local band's hit songs, Old Pike's, and it had that melody, and everybody knew that song. Anybody who went out to the bars and heard Old Pike, they knew that song, and so then all of a sudden, Train has a song that is a huge hit, and it's like that's Old Pike's song, and I remember their keyboard player was in the music business. I think he still is.
Old Pike's keyboard player.
Yeah. Thank you. And he was just then getting into the music business. And the story I heard was that he and they decided that it would be too harmful to their future to sue Train. And so they ended up like settling on a court or something like that. I don't know how it was resolved, but the way I remember it is they didn't take the lawsuit very far because they were advised that could screw their relationship up with the music business and so forth.
Old Pike's.
Yeah. That's the way I heard it always. And anyway, it was just funny to have this kid sing this song and just all of a sudden be like, man, that song was stolen from a Bloomington band.
Right. Your son playing that song, if it was really fair, the keyboardist for Old Pike should have got a little money for it, right?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. I remember also when Old Pike, and this is when they got signed, because that was I think it was in the early 90s when several Bloomington bands got signed, like El Nino and Mysteries of Life and a bunch of other bands. There's just like a feeding frenzy at the time and by the labels, and Old Pike got signed. And I remember thinking and saying, if I go to like Kroger and I hear an Old Pike song on like that's been turned into Muzak, then I'm going to have to leave or move somewhere else, which of course that's not logical because then it would probably be on music all over the country. But
that's what I was going to say. What if you were in a different state? Then you would realize, wait, this is Muzak in a Kroger, not just in Bloomington. Yeah. It's not just local support. This is everywhere.
Right. I moved to like the mountains of Montana, deep into the woods, and I just go in the grocery store once a month to get my staples, and I go in and it's like, hey, yeah,
I wonder how Old Pike feels when they hear that train song these days.
It's got to be weird.
Yeah. Jeez.
So it's a Bloomington story.
That is a good one.
This also reminds
Old Pike really, like when they got signed, they were living the rock star life. Like,
oh my God.
You remember seeing them out? Like,
absolutely.
It was like they were like rock stars at the video saloon.
It was like the Rolling Stones walked in. Especially Tim, the lead singer.
Yeah, Tim. The rock stars went bowling the other night.
Well, it is funny in hindsight because we're in a tiny little college town, and I was just as guilty of this at times. But they'd walk in with like cowboy boots and like a glittery blazer, and you know what I mean, like something like that. Just
some sweet ass leather jackets.
Yeah, walking into the video saloon.
And there was another band that did that too. What was the band? It was like a rockabilly band that they took it to the level.
Swing Race?
Yeah, they took it to the level that they all drove like cars from the 60s.
Totally.
They were not fucking around.
I love that.
But I say that I was in Crooked County, and there's a while I dressed it. I had cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. Right.
No, I've been through all these things. I mean, that's the thing is it's funny. And it's funny that somehow at the time I was differentiating myself from Old Pike. Like, oh, look at those guys. They think they're rock stars. And meanwhile, I was wearing a woman's blouse and, had like 2 different colored hair and the nose rings and, or whatever.
I'll never sell out like that. Me and my mullet.
You want to talk about Jim Granato?
Sure.
Jim Granato. So Jim Granato is he's our first guest.
Very first.
Yeah. And you guys go but way back. And he talks about it in the show, but
yeah, he talks about how we met and all that in the show, but we've known each other since high school, and we've been roommates here in Bloomington. We moved to Colorado and were roommates in Boulder for a while, and I came back here, and he moved several different places, and he and I have been pretty good friends for many years now.
So Jim's primary gig is he's a filmmaker.
Yes.
Yeah. So Jim told us that he is currently working on a film, like a feature film, not a documentary.
Yeah, feature film. With the mummies.
With the mummies.
And he's been working on that for several years now. That's been his main project.
And he has a lot of smaller. It seems like a lot of smaller projects, and the one that I think I always knew that he was the filmmaker through you and through you and just kind of knowing him. But what really put him on my map was when he made a documentary about musician Pat Spurgeon, killer drummer. He played with John Strom or any of those guys.
I really got to know him with Stranded at the Drive-In.
Oh, he played with Stranded at the Drive-In.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you were in the band at the time?
I was never in that band. I was in a Spoon Furies, but Kenny was in Stranded at the Drive-In, and we would often play shows together, like Bluebird and Second Story and all that.
Yeah, and you mentioned Kenny in the last episode. I think when you were talking about you all had come up with an idea of having recordings that are being played in your casket.
Oh, right.
But I just for the audience, Kenny is Josh's cousin who they grew up together and got in a lot of trouble together in their younger days.
Kenny Childers.
Yeah, back in their Pentecostal rebellion days in southern Indiana.
Yeah, we got beat up at the same time at the church camp and things
Come
like that.
Are you serious?
Got locked in the bigger kids would lock us in other cars. Yeah.
Are you telling all the truth right now?
I'm telling all the truth right now.
You both got beat up at the same time at church camp?
I don't remember, like I guess not beat up.
Yeah.
I actually got somebody took a Frisbee and threw it directly at my nose and
jeez.
And bloodied my nose, probably broke my nose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right directly in front of my mom.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Love that woman.
And then I know.
So
I cried so much.
You did.
I cried blood.
Oh, geez.
I was like, that's probably what it sounded like.
The Pentecostal church camp.
When
you got hit with a frisbee and right in the nose, this was on purpose.
Yeah, and this is like, Indiana summer, July, August, or whatever, and we're in these things with zero air conditioner, maybe one fan in a window, kind of deal. God. Yeah, it was like 100 million degrees.
So that's Kenny Childers. So, and then Pat, I don't know exactly the chronology. We should know, I guess, if we're going to talk about him like we know, but he ended up going to San Francisco, and eventually he ended up in the band Rogue Wave, which is obviously a national act and all that. And Pat found out that he needed a new kidney, and so he actually talked to Jim Granato about wanting to document his process of being on tour and needing a new kidney and all that. And that became this pretty amazing story that took a lot of surprising and tragic twists and turns as they were filming it, called D-Tour, D-Tour. It's an amazing documentary. I think it's a real service, and just in terms of the fact that it's a document that exists is pretty awesome. And a real credit to Jim for putting that all together.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we in editing decided to cut so many of the parts of the conversation with Jim where you really get to see how accomplished he is, and focus on picture of Jim Granato, the juvenile delinquent.
We cut out everything that he's all his accomplishments and what he's currently working on, and everything, and focused on his brief time in jail.
When Jim gets a copy of this podcast, he's going to listen to it, and probably if he has his AirPods in, it'll work well, because he'll just walk out to his car calmly and start driving east, and he will not stop. He might stop and buy some adult diapers, get some gas,
maybe a Coca-Cola,
or an energy drink. Yeah. He will continue on his way through the night to Bloomington, Indiana.
Yeah.
Where you'll hear a knock on your door.
He knows exactly where I live.
He doesn't know where I live, but he does know where you live. Yeah.
I'll tell him.
And he's going to come, and all of a sudden, this show is going to become a true crime podcast with only one host, at best.
Right. It's going to be one heck of a Bloomington story.
It's going to be a great Bloomington story, and hopefully they'll let Jim edit the documentary from prison after he kills you for what we did to the interview.
And if that doesn't happen, I like the plan of we put out the episode and just never answer another phone call or email or text message from Jim again, ever.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think that this podcast could, if nothing else, it could be a way to just start slowly eliminating all of the people in our lives.
Right.
So, should we let Jim speak for himself?
Yeah, let's let Jim speak for himself. There's Jim.
Yeah. Hey, you guys talking about colonoscopies? Oh god.
Yeah. It's fucking awesome to see you.
It's good to see you too, man.
Yeah.
I like the beard. You looking good?
It's getting gray.
Jim, I'm sorry that I'm not a professional yet. I know that you are. Are you kidding? Did Josh tell you this is our first time doing this? I mean,
I had a feeling if you guys are testing the waters with me, I think that's kind of wise.
No disrespect.
I'm honored that you guys thought of me to I don't know, all join hands and jump into this mysterious pool together of Bloomington stories.
Can we jump in the time machine?
Yeah.
It's always interesting to me, just the it's not even archetype, but just who is the kind of person who wants to be behind the camera, and you've really dedicated your life to that, obviously. And so can we go all the way back to Bloomington? Because you grew up in Bloomington, right?
I did.
You and Josh met in high school or earlier?
High school.
High school.
Sociology, I think.
in sociology.
What was our teacher's name? Mr. Huntsicker? Is that it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Hot sticker?
Huntsicker. We're not cutting that.
So you're in the sociology class with Miss and you. Yeah. Okay, we'll burn that joke to the ground. So you're okay. So and you're in the front row, and you're both taking notes in your trapper keepers, and you want to have a study group together. Is that kind of how it goes? Like you say, "Hey, man, I'm Jim. I'd like to get a really great grade in this class. Would you like to go to the library and have some coffee and talk about sociology?"
Actually, I think how I got Josh's attention is actually way better than that. Josh, do you know what I'm talking about?
Remind me.
When I spent the night in jail.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah. And you came right in there.
What the?
What did he say? Like, why weren't you here or something like that? You're like, well, I was in jail.
Come on, seriously?
Yeah, it's the only time I ever spent the night in jail.
You got to say
that was the Monroe County Jail, so that counts. That's a Bloomington story.
Yeah, that's a Bloomington story.
But you're able to walk into sociology class and say to the teacher that the reason you weren't there because you're in jail.
Yep. Yeah. So what happened? What happened was, well, let's back up a little bit. First of all, I knew of Josh. I don't know if I knew your name. I certainly knew Kenny. That's Josh's cousin. For those listening, Kenny Childers. I've known Kenny a long time, but I wouldn't consider myself close with Kenny in those days. Although we knew of each other, we had some mutual friends. We had some classes together. And so I remember seeing Josh a lot around in the hallways because, tall kid, big ass red heavy metal hair.
Oh, really?
Mullet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And you hung out with, you hung out with Jeremy Barron, who's another great Bloomington guy who's living on the West Coast. I haven't seen Jeremy in a while, but
we got him on the hook. We're going to talk to him at some point.
Yeah.
Josh, I got to jump in on the mullet thing.
Yeah.
Was that completely sincere? Like, were you living the dream? I know you loved heavy. Well, you know what I'm saying? Like, were you like, haha, I have a mullet?
You got to consider the time period.
Well, yeah, I guess so. Like, most people were doing it because they were serious about it, right?
I can pretty much sum up growing up for me was I was a break dancer until one day I discovered heavy metal, and that's when the mullet started. That moment, and then one time, and then I carried on that mullet for many years.
Yeah.
Until
many years.
Many years from, like it started growing in around 8th grade and kept it until I was a junior in high school.
Oh, okay. So a little before I met you.
Yeah. What ended the mullet as immediately as breakdancing was Nirvana. I saw it was like Teen Spirit, and I was like, oh, I'm going to have short hair and wear combat boots now and the flannel shirt. I no longer love Motley Crue.
Josh and I saw Nirvana together.
Actually. Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Where at?
In Ohio.
Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah,
man, that to me is the fact that you got to see Nirvana. I honestly can't think of many bands that, and I don't even love Nirvana, but I can't think of many bands that have our age, kind of our cohort that I would rather say I saw than Nirvana. I did not see them, so I'm jealous. Was it a great show?
Yeah.
Did you know you were seeing something amazing, or was it just
by the time we saw them, they were pretty huge at that point.
they were huge.
Do you remember the show? Like, they put on a pretty awesome show?
Yeah, you know what? In fact, Josh, it's on YouTube, believe it or not. I think there might be video. It may not be video, but there's audio of the show. I only found that out fairly recently, maybe a year or so
I think
ago.
we talked about that, and I actually watched it. That's real.
You did?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah, I watched at least some of that on YouTube of the show that we were at. And what year would you say? Like 93?
It's 93.
Yeah.
93.
They're well into their world ruling, stage.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So back to, you were talking about Josh, Jeremy Barron.
Yeah. So back in high school, I'm a year older than Josh. So I was a year ahead of him in high school, and I didn't graduate. In fact, I ended up dropping out of high school about a month before I was supposed to finish the year before his senior year, before we met, really. And so that's another story. But
it is, and I don't want to get too far into it, but can you
Yeah.
Give like just a flash idea of why that happened. Why? Because it's interesting.
It's just a terrible student who didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's to sum it up. But
okay.
I just turned 18, probably a month or so before that. I ended up moving into a place at Eaton Muse. So I moved into Eaton Muse with some other friends. About a week later, this is summer in Bloomington. For those who remember spending summers in the late 80s and early 90s in Bloomington should remember that the place was practically a ghost town during the summer months. I'm sure it's not like that anymore, or is it?
No, well, it's not like it was. I mean, before, like you're saying, I mean, it seriously was like a different kind of state of consciousness because it was just like this town that was really busy and full of like 21-year-olds. All of a sudden was just like felt open and like the adults came out. It was kind of like an Adult Swim. It was like an Adult Swim where they built, it's like they blow the whistle and then all of a sudden all the adults are like, cool, man, I can go downtown, have a beer or whatever.
I remember it being pretty desolate.
Yeah.
And the way I remember it is there was still a lot of cops around.
Really?
And I might be exaggerating here, not purposely, but I always thought that there were more police employed in Bloomington because of the students, obviously. And when they all went away, that number of police didn't really change much in the summer. And this is a long version of me how I got to know Josh, and I'm getting there. But in Eaton Muse, about a week after I got kicked out of Dunhill, I'm at Eaton Muse, and a couple friends of mine were drinking. It was also the same summer that they allowed Coors beer to be now sort of brought in over the Mason-Dixon line or something crazy.
Whoa.
Or no, not the Mason-Dixon, but like the Mississippi River. There was some like, you remember Smokey and the Bandit? That was like what the whole story was about, transporting beer over a certain boundary. Well, that was actually based on something that actually was true. And that summer, that boundary went away. And so Coors beer had flown into every liquor store in Bloomington. People were super excited about buying Coors beer.
I can't believe that.
And there were these 30 packs of beer coming. We were all, we got hooked up with beer from older friends, whatnot. Two friends cut out. They're going to Kroger, probably to buy cigarettes. They come back. There was a TCBY yogurt place in that vicinity, in that shopping center. And they thought it would be, there was a big sign hanging out. And they thought it'd be funny just to tear it down and to bring it back to our apartment.
The TCBY sign?
Yeah, it was like this, hung with bungee cords and just like hung outside. This is nighttime. It's, and what they didn't know, I don't know how many Coors beer we've all had at that point, but there was like 4 cop cars in the parking lot because they had nothing to do. The cops had nothing to do because there was nothing going on in Bloomington. And they're watching a couple of drunk underage kids grab the sign and then run up the hill back behind the shopping center back to Eaton Muse Apartments where we were all shacked up living. We were all having like, a little party.
Yeah.
And so anyway, fast forward about 10 minutes later, they come back in, they show us the sign, and we're like, okay, big fucking deal. But then you hear all these cars pulling up. Lights are flashing. They come up. It's that familiar Bloomington, on the front door. And it's just like, uh-oh. And so everybody just basically just runs in different directions. Come in. They finally find me. I'm underneath a blanket because I had been arrested the week before, or cited, really. And they find me under a blanket. And I had like maybe a sip of beer. I don't think I even had a full beer. And they pull me out and they're like, come downstairs. I come downstairs after hearing all the commotion through, from upstairs for 10 minutes or whatever. I go down there. Everybody's in handcuffs. And then they're asking me all sorts of questions. And I'm just complying with them, whatnot. And the guy, for some reason, I'm the only one not put in handcuffs. I remember that very specifically. Then the cop was like, oh, okay, well, have you had a drink of beer tonight? And I was just like, yeah. I just went ahead and said it because it was fresh on my breath, whatever. I wasn't going to play around. The guy was like, well, I'm not going to arrest you tonight. Instead, I'm going to write you a citation.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, like that's much better. But then the cop asked, so have you ever had one of these before?
Uh-oh.
I'm like, yeah, last week.
Oh my God.
The cop was just like, oh, great. So he writes me a citation.
You were that guy.
I was very unlucky. That's who I was. Because remember, I didn't finish high school. I had no plans except to go back to high school. Cop gives me the second citation. He hauls all my friends down at jail. They get home eventually, et cetera, et cetera. So I got these 2 citations. I don't tell my folks anything. I barely working. I used to work at a place called BW3s. I don't know if that's still there.
Yeah.
That was a kind of a cool job. That's kind of where I knew a lot of older people that used to buy us alcohol and whatnot. Anyway, I was starting to lose my hours over there. I think I crashed the delivery truck. And I kind of got in trouble with that. And I was kind of I was a delivery driver in Bloomington. I have other stories related to that. But
by the way, I got to interject. Josh, do you keep having moments where you're like remembering your parallel story of whatever thing? Like I'm just like, oh yeah, I remember when the police came over to my house.
Yeah,
it's so funny because you're pressing these buttons that unlock like memories that I think like a lot of people have. Yeah. Of their own versions of those, Well,
especially in college town and that time, that era.
Exactly, the college towns are so specific. So, okay, so
I was kind of drifting for a bit, and then at this whole time, I had to go back to high school, and I was known well enough in high school where when I got there that first morning, probably looking pretty haggard, probably not enjoying. I wasn't in a good mood particularly, but I get out of the car. People knew who I was, and then they were confused why I was there because they knew I was, I was supposed to be gone at that point. But these 2 citations were hanging over me. So basically, that turned into a court date. And that court date was like September something, and school had already been started. So I have got this thing. I'm keeping it away from my folks. They know nothing. I borrow a suit actually from a friend of mine who had graduated the year before.
So at this time, your parents didn't know about either citation?
No, they didn't know anything. No, I kept all that from them. I didn't have the balls to ask for help. But to their credit, or my dad's credit, he does kind of come to the rescue in a way. So what happens is I go to court, and for those who's listening to this who have spent any time in Bloomington the last 30 plus years will probably remember the name Ken Todd. He was a pretty well-known judge. Mm-hmm. Josh, that name ring a bell?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I've seen Ken.
Anybody who's had, flirted with the law in Bloomington probably has crossed paths with Ken Todd.
I met Ken.
But anyway, we go in and Judge Todd's there and he's reading our whatever, he's kind of going through the paperwork and stuff. And we're all sort of declaring ourselves guilty. And then, it comes down to the point where he's handing down sentencing, and he basically, me and this other kid that went to South, we're in there for 2 drinking offenses, and he gives us 30 days in jail. 30 days. And the other guy got longer, and because he had a lot. He had kind of a rap, sheet. And so
were you surprised?
Oh yeah, we were shocked.
Yeah, that's shocking to me.
Yeah. It was just like, oh my God. And it wasn't like, all right, go home and take care of a few things. No, you go straight to jail.
Seriously?
Yeah. I had school the next day. And so I'm kind of freaking out, and I'm taken downstairs, and I'm getting my fingerprints. I'm getting booked, and I'm starting to change clothes. They're checking my ass, and they're doing the whole 9 yards. Yep. Seriously. And I don't remember where in this sort of itinerary, where I got to make the phone call, probably pretty early on, but that's when I had to confess to my dad, who's a lawyer. Yeah. Was a lawyer. My dad's passed away now, but was a lawyer who practiced. He didn't practice law locally, but he knew people locally, and he knew Todd. He knew Judge Todd. And I had to call him. I had to tell him what was happening. Yeah. And I remember that pretty well, because I remember thinking, he's going to kill me.
Oh my God!
Because he and I didn't see eye to eye, especially back then. Those days, I was like in and out of the house. I was. Yeah, I dropped out of school. I was not in heavy favor in his eyes.
Yeah.
And but to his amazing credit, I will never forget this, because me and my dad butted heads so much that he was super cool about it. It was like he was expecting this call, this whole life or something. But I had to hang up, and I had to go through that that process, and they got, they gave me the orange Monroe County jail clothes, the whole 9 yards. And then they put me in a cell, not like an individual cell, but you're like in a big room sharing with a bunch of other basically drunk offenders. I mean, it was a pretty light group comparatively.
You say drug offenders?
Drunk. Drinking. I don't remember any real hard criminals in there. It was a lot of local dudes, all guys, of course, that probably were DUI offenses and whatnot.
Were you scared? I mean, was it like stir crazy?
I was more scared about my dad, about how he was going to react.
Really? You were more scared about that? Okay.
I think looking back, I'm sure I was scared, but I think looking back, I was probably, feeling a little bit better after he had full knowledge of what was happening, and hopefully something positive was going to come out of this, right? Whether he's going to get me out, or I don't know what it was, pulling strings. I wasn't sure. So, but going in that night, they gave you your little sheet, this little thin sheet. You got your couple pillows and you're on your bunk. And me and this kid from South, I don't remember the guy's name, but I remember he was a year older than me, and we kind of knew each other, and we sort of hung together. And I remember the doors at a certain time, there were individual cells within this room, this big room, this bunk area. And then the cell doors would open, and the guys that were put back there could come out and hang out. And so there was another tier of criminals, if you will. And so they would come out, and I remember one guy I would later work with. He was he had homemade tattoos all over his arm. They were literally the worst things you've ever seen. It just like MO, like mom, things like that he did himself. And I would later work with him at Pizza Hut, I remember. Because Bloomington was not a big town, not a big community, especially back then. And there was another guy also another guy from the Unionville days that I knew. So I actually knew people in there. It was crazy.
That is
weird.
Really interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm sorry, this is a super long version of the story. So anyway, next morning comes, I get up, they wake me up, they put me in shackles.
Yeah.
And they took me back to court. So it's all in the same building, by the way. And so I go back into court, my dad's sitting there, and and it was me and this other kid from South. The same thing happened to the two of us. The other guy who was with us originally, he was being put away for longer. And so we go back up, and then Judge Todd's there, and it's like, how you guys feeling this morning? So, it was a full-on scared treatment experience.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I can't believe I didn't anticipate that.
I was wondering about that.
I was having I went from 0 to 10 because at some point, I thought you were working the story towards saying that your dad had orchestrated the whole thing, that he had called Judge Todd and said, man, I need you to help me get my son straight. And then Todd does it as a favor for this other dude. I thought it was like that.
That would be hilarious if your dad was involved in it, and your dad ended up being the hero of the story.
Right, exactly.
I'm sorry to let you down, but he did call Judge Todd, and Judge Todd told him, I'm just keeping him in there for the night. So
he told him. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So he knew, but of course there was no way my dad could relate that back to me because I was not allowed to make any more phone calls. So anyway, I go back in, and of course I didn't know what to expect, except I knew my dad knew that, something would have happened. Anyway, I was let go. My dad was like really great about it. He was like, you better get to school.
Yeah.
So I get my clothes back. I think I'm still, because they give you the clothes that you had on your back. And I had this sort of mock suit, that I was wearing. I don't know if Josh remembers this, but I went straight to school from jail that morning.
I do.
And I go in. We went to Bloomington North, and I went into the attendance office, and I was known in the attendance office for being always late to school. I was always, and they knew me in there, and I'd always write some excuse down in their little book. And then that one time I went in there, I remember this very well. I can't remember her name, but the lady was like, "Oh, Mr. Granato, glad you could join us," kind of thing. And then it's like, what's your excuse this time? And I wrote in the book, Jail. And then she was just like, what? And it was like, I think our class was second period. I had missed the first class. I remember that. I think we had second period. So and class had already started. I went straight in there and got the same treatment from Mr. Huntsicker, or Chris, you could say your favorite nickname there.
Yeah.
Mr.
Which, if I remember correctly, that's what everybody called him in those days.
Oh my God!
I mean, how could you not?
Yeah.
But I go in and I'm dressed a little funny and I'm making a bit of a splash. And of course, I had Mr. Huntsicker the year before, so again, I was sort of the laughing stock, if you will. That's how I felt because I went back. I was in this kind of awkward position. And anyway, he asked me in front of the whole class, "Why are you late?" And I'm like, "I just got out of jail." And then I think that's when I earned stripes. Or I earned some respect from Mr. Bennett. I'm sitting at my desk and I'm thinking, "Oh, he just got out of jail, huh? I'm gonna be friends with this guy."
He's all right in my book.
Yeah. Hey, Jim, I have a question for you. What are your thoughts about Bloomington when you come here now? Is it a place like you don't recognize?
Again, with movies, one of my earliest memories coming to Bloomington was early summer of 1978, and they were filming Breaking Away.
Wow.
And I remember seeing lights and production trucks just from a distance, but that was happening. And when people find out I'm from Bloomington, or have been these whole years up till this very present day, usually the thing that people go to isn't, the Bluebird or many of the other little details, but it's that movie Breaking Away, because they saw it at some point in their life and they love it. It's one of those timeless movies that anybody growing up in Middle America can relate to. Coming of age, trying to get out of town. And that movie, I still watch that movie probably at least once a year, and I love it. And Bloomington was very different then. Bloomington, I used to know that town like the back of my hand. I knew every street, every nook and cranny because of the delivery pizza business that I was involved with there for so long. I mean, next to being in a cover band, I think the next best job you could have in that town was delivering pizzas, because I made a lot of money. But the streets and the places, that I used to know, a lot of those places are gone, or I've forgotten streets. And so that's kind of an interesting sort of transition. Things like that are fading away. So I saw Josh last year because after the pandemic, a year plus after the pandemic started, I finally, got boosted and I took a cross country trip, and I
remember that,
putting Bloomington on my map, on my map there, and that was great. But and there, I will say that that night that I pulled in front of Josh's house, 3:00 in the morning, I've been driving all day into the night. I pulled in, I pulled my van in front of Josh's. I told Josh earlier that day that I would not wake him up. I would see him in the morning. I got my curtains all pulled, I'm crashing in the back of my van. And right before I crashed in the back of the van, this is 3:00 in the morning, there was a guy right outside the window, drunk as hell, trying to get it together, walking home. And I knew the guy. He used to live here.
What the heck?
Whoa. I won't mention his name because in case he's listening to this, he's somebody you probably know. I can tell you, he was a guy. Josh is another guy who's kind of well known in Bloomington, but I didn't meet him until many years later in San Francisco because he lived there for a while, and he knew the Elephants and all those guys.
Right?
No, it was.
I think I know who it is.
Oh,
is it? What's his? Is it? Was that his name?
My Lord.
That's what he went by in those days.
So I look out, and now I'm looking out my curtain, seeing what the commotion was, and
fantastic.
He's dropping shit. And he's drunk as a skunk, getting it together. He's walking up the hill. I don't know where he was going, but he didn't see me at all. And I remember thinking that moment. Now I'm fucking bleary-eyed, tired. I'm like, holy shit. I'm back in Bloomington.
Right.
This part of town where Josh lives hasn't changed.
Yeah.
The scene out in front of my window hasn't changed.
Right.
Fucking beautiful about it.
Yeah.
And I just hope the guy got home all right, and I assume he did. And if you guys have seen him since, he's alive, whatever. Yeah. But that's the Bloomington I remember and love.
And now, a Mellencamp moment.
So here's my last question, right? And this is kind of You can either say pass or you can have something to say about this. You don't have to have something to say. When I say the following name, do you have any kind of like immediate like memory or something that just comes to mind? John Mellencamp.
I served him popcorn once, and when I worked at the Showplace 6, this is in 1989. It's not called that anymore. I'm assuming that movie theater's still there, but it's probably just called Showplace or something now. It used to be called the Showplace 6, and he and his gorgeous model wife came in, and she did all the talking, and he wouldn't do any talking.
Is that right?
He just stood there like a stone, and I was very gregarious, very kind of a goof, and I kept going, "Would you like butter on that popcorn, Mr. Mellencamp?"
Are you serious?
Yeah, and I kept nudging him, and his wife, who was, this complete, I forget her name, they're divorced, now, but complete knockout of a woman. Yeah, she would just look at me and she'd be like, no, we're okay. We just want this. And I'm like, would you like to supersize that soda to a large, Mr. Mellencamp? And I just kept going. I kept pushing at Mr. Mellencamp. And you could tell he was getting uncomfortable. I was 16 years old at the time.
Were you fucking with him, or were you just excited?
I was totally fucking with him. And I'm not that clever all the time, but this particular moment,
that's really fantastic.
I did get to fuck with him, and luckily for me, nobody complained. I didn't lose my job. I was able to get the transaction. They went off saw their movie. But
can I get you a hot dog, Mr. Mellencamp?
I'm sure I offered him everything I could think of in the 60 seconds we had together.
How about some nachos, Mr. Mellencamp?
The jalapenos are really good tonight, Mr. Mellencamp.
Yeah. I love it.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I really love this. And
Jim,
we've been on it 3 hours straight here. I'm really sorry about coming in a little hot later.
You're coming in a little hot, Jim.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thank you so much for taking the time to do it, man.
Yeah, really appreciate it.
Yeah.
I don't know if we said this already, but we could thank Jim for, he gave us a ton of material. He gave us like 5 hours worth of stuff and shared his bio with us and his images that we're going to include in the show notes and all the links to get a hold of him, to see what his current projects and how to get a hold of his movies that he's already made and what he's going to do in the future. And
Jim gave us so much. He's a trip, man. I love hearing from him.
Yeah.
I wish we could have included all the artistic stuff he's doing, not just his criminal record, because he did a lot.
Yeah. The show notes that will include all the projects that he's worked on in the past that are available to watch in one form or another, and everything that the progress of working on. He's just all around good dude.
Yes, I think he even mentioned, he did. He mentioned stuff we cut. He mentioned some music stuff he was involved in. I think I remember him saying he might even shoot us some of his 7 inches that we could give out if anybody wanted them.
That's right. Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. And so there might be. Here's another thing. He also did, speaking of music, he did a shot of Brando video. And we all have that Brando connection. Yeah. Because you played bass and I did at one point, and he shot a video. Yeah. We'll find a link to that and we'll put that in the show notes as well.
Cool. Thanks again to Jim Granato for being on Bloomington Stories for our second episode, but our first official guest.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to Bloomington Stories. If you've got any hot leads for guests or topics, please send them our way at bloomingtonstoriespod@gmail.com. And come back and check out our guests on the next episode of Bloomington
Stories. Bloomington Stories is a podcast produced by Chris Coopersmith and Josh Bennett, with new episodes released on the first of each month. Please consider subscribing, rating, reviewing, and following. Please see our show notes for more information on our guests.